Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, members of the public, members of this committee. This is the regular meeting of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. Let's get started by officially calling the roll. Mr. Mejia, if you would. Your mic's not on, but I'm present. Blumenfield present.
Yes, Mr. Blumenfield. Ms. Hutt.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Nassarian. Absent. Mr. Lee.
Present.
And Ms. Roman.
Here.
That's 4 members and a quorum.
All right. We're going to start this meeting by taking public comment on agenda items. Our goal is to get as many speakers as possible. We'll then move through the agenda one at a time, listen to staff presentations, and vote on them accordingly. We'll take, as we do in this committee, general public comment. We will be at the end after we've completed all items. City Clerk, if you could read the rules for public comment into the record.
Yes, sir. Appellants and/or their representatives and applicants and/or their representatives will be allowed to speak for a total of 3 minutes per side unless otherwise noted by the chair. Members of the public wishing to speak on one agenda item only shall have an opportunity to speak for 1 minute. Appellants and applicants will be given an opportunity to speak when their item is called. Each appellant and applicant has a total of 3 minutes to speak. An appellant can choose to have a single representative speak on his or her behalf or divide the 3 minutes among his or her team. Anyone else, including an attorney or project manager, wishing to speak on an appellant's behalf who does not do so during this 3-minute period may offer a minute of public comment whenever the committee chairperson opens the public comment period for the item. Therefore, we expect that appellants and applicants have the respective teams assembled and ready to present at the appropriate time today. Members of the public wishing to speak on more than one item shall say that and shall be allowed to speak for a total of 2 minutes. Failure to submit public comment in a timely manner before the comment period for the item ends results in forfeiture of the opportunity to participate in public comment for the item. As stated by the chair, general public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Mr. City Attorney, please provide additional guidance on public comment.
When speaking on the agenda items, you must be on topic. Our goal is to get through as many speakers as we can. If you are not speaking on topic, or if we cannot tell whether you are speaking on an agenda item, you will get one brief warning from the city attorney. If you do not immediately get clearly on topic, or if you stray off topic, you will forfeit the rest of your time, and we will move on to the next speaker. We will inform you when your time is up.
Great, thank you. And colleagues, just so you know, my intention is to recommend adopting 3 through 6, those motions to adopt recommendations in the CAO report on item 7. Before we get to item 1, and for folks in the audience, the way we work in this committee, if you're here on a particular item, we'll hear your public comment when we get to that item. But before we do that, there are a number of people who sign up for many items, and we're going to hear them first to get that out of the way. So I'm not going to read the names because most of them are offensive that people put in here. But for folks who came here to speak for 3 or more items, if you're here for 2 items, you can speak at the time of the item. But if you're here for 3 or more items, please come forward right now. And the usual suspects, what I refer to as the clown car, doesn't seem to be here. So going once, anybody for 3 or more items? Okay, multiple, 2 items, you'll just hear you as we on each item. So 2 items, stay seated, because we will bring you up on each item as we get to it. So you'll have 1 minute per item. But for some people come in here just to hear their own voice and they speak on every item. We get them out of the way at the beginning, but they signed up, but they apparently left. So multiple items are now closed. Great. Now we will move to item number 1. If you could read that into the record.
Yes, sir. Item 1, it is a categorical exemption and a report from the Planning Department. It includes an appeal filed by LA Highlight Property, and they're appealing the zoning administrator determination to discontinue the motel use and impose 6 conditions. The property is located in CD 8.
Okay, and just so folks understand the order, we're going to have the City Planning Department present their report. We're then going to ask LAPD to offer comments. Then we're going to have the appellants make their arguments. They get 3 minutes. Then the applicant would get 3 minutes. Then we would hear from Councilman Harris Doss's office, whose district this is in. And then we would take public comment after that. And then the committee would have its discussion and for questions. So that's the plan as we move forward. So if you hear from the public on this item, you will get your chance to speak. So let's start with the department. Could you make your presentation?
Good afternoon, honorable council members. Iris One with the Department of City Planning. Item number 1 pertains to an appeal to the zoning administrator's determination to discontinue the transient motel use known as the Highlight Motel, a property which consists of 3 structures and 36 guest rooms, with main location address at 10321 South Broadway in the 8th Council District. On September 26, 2024, the zoning administrator issued a determination discontinuing the subject motel and imposed six administrative conditions related to reimbursement of fees, potential change of use, covenant recordation, and change in ownership. The subject business has generated numerous community complaints, aided
If you could
crimes,
hold the microphone a little closer to you, please.
endangered public safety, and has required consistent police enforcement, as evidenced by submissions from the Los Angeles Police Department crime reports over a 5-year period, which includes at least 186 calls for service, 189 investigative and arrest reports related to prostitution, operation of disorderly house, assault with deadly weapon, attempted rape, armed robbery, narcotics, sexual assault, rape, burglary, battery on police officers, deaths related to drug overdose, human trafficking of minor, shootings, kidnapping, attempted murder, multiple murders, violence with injuries, and more. In addition, planning staff received 28 comment letters from local residents, the Empowerment Congress Southeast Area Neighborhood Development Council, and parents of students who attend schools within walking distance of the motel, who are in favor of revoking the motel use at the subject site. These letters cited concerns related to operations of the Highlight Motel, including activities such as prostitution, drugs, violence, shootings, and more. On October 9th, the owner-operator of the Highlight Motel filed an appeal of the entire decision of the zoning administrator's determination, challenging the following: violation of First Amendment Petition and Grievances Clause, Association Clause, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Search and Seizure Clause, Fifth Amendment, Takings Clause, 14th Amendment, Due Process Clause, and Equal Protection Clause, that there is no credible evidence that the subject motel has or is operating in violation of any local, state, or federal law, or has operated as a public nuisance, that the discontinuance of use places the appellants out of business and will cause great economic and personal harm. The appeal justifications of violations to constitutional amendments cannot be substantiated at this time, and the owner-operator's written justification of the appeal has been transferred to Council File Number 24-1273 for your consideration. The zoning administrator's action to discontinue the transient motel use is a result of LAPD crime reports, citizen complaints, and testimony which indicate that activities at the subject site have resulted in impacts to the community at large. These impacts have been associated with the operation of the premises and lack of sufficient oversight at the property. While the operator has argued that a lot of the LAPD reports stem from incidents occurring outside of the motel, it is indisputable that many of the crimes are attributed to the operation of the business, as cited in detailed investigative reports. These incidents took place within the boundaries of the motel, in the motel parking lot, and in the guest rooms. The activities taking place at the site deprive residents and other community members of their rightful ability to enjoy their neighborhood. Furthermore, there have been prior governmental efforts with the attempt to abate nuisances at the location. Over the last few years, the LAPD met with the motel owners to discuss crimes occurring at the property and specific measures that can be taken to address the nuisance. A number of conditions were suggested to the owners which were not followed through by the operators. As evidenced by crime reports, nuisance activities persisted on the premises even when LAPD continued to work with the motel management. On January 20th, the LAPD Southeast Area Vice Unit...
Ma'am, do you think you could just move the microphone a little closer to you? I'm having trouble hearing some of your sentences.
Sure. Is this better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. On January 20th, the LAPD Southeast Area Vice Unit submitted a letter and stated that the Highlight Motel should not run as a motel and should no longer be in operation. The letter has been uploaded to the council file for your consideration. Staff's recommendation is to deny the appeal and uphold the zoning administrator's determination. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions you may have, and we have LAPD officers who are present to provide testimony. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, next, as I mentioned, we'll hear from LAPD.
Good
Mr.
afternoon.
Herman, sit down, please. This is your only warning. You're disrupting the meeting with your gesticulations and your standing up. Okay, and also, Mr. Spindler, you did the same. You are now both warned. Next time, you will be removed. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the committee members for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Tyson Hamaoka. I'm a senior lead officer with the Los Angeles Police Department. I've been with the department 22 years. I've been a senior lead officer for 12 years, and I was assigned to the area of the Highlight Motel for 9. As senior lead officers, we fill two main functions. Number one is to monitor crime trends in our respective areas and develop crime battling strategies to help bring down those incidents of crime. Number two, we work with community stakeholders to address quality of life problems in our patrol areas. My purpose today is to describe my summary of my events with the Highlight Motel. In doing so, I'll address three main points. Number one is my attempts to create a partnership with the motel owners to bring down the incidents of crime on the property. Number two, to provide an overview of the crime numbers at the motel. And number three, finally, my recommendations for the motel going forward. So, like I previously said, as senior lead officers, we're in charge of tracking the crime in our area. In 2020, I began to see an increase in the number of crimes and arrests at the Highlight Motel. Now, in viewing this information, I cross-referenced it with radio calls that were also on the property. I did this to see if it was in fact a pattern or possibly an anomaly. And what I saw was that it was a pattern and not random events. At the time I ran that inquiry, the Highlight Motel had two arrests, 26 crimes, 13 which were felonies, and 55 radio calls. So as a senior lead officer, whenever I see this pattern, my first goal and really my ultimate goal is to work with the property owners, whether it be a business or an apartment complex or whatever the possible nuisance location is, to be able to work together and collaborate to bring down the incidence of crime on the properties. So on July 22nd, 2020, I arranged a meeting with Marco Young and Shirley Zhao. They're two of the owners of the Highlight Motel. And during that meeting, I expressed the concern of the police department and ways to collaborate to bring down the crime and best business practices going forward. And some of these included reevaluating their security company and providing camera surveillance, better systems, advising the ownership of the problems associated with renting rooms by the hour and to deny rooms to sex workers. And this was a constant point that I would have to readdress over the years. Thirdly, to establish a permit systems for customers parking on the lot so that the staff, security, and the police department would know which cars had a lawful right to be on the property. The installation of physical barriers to control the unwanted flow of pedestrians and vehicles coming onto the property, and the proper training of motel staff. If the staff was unwilling to comply with the owner's directives, namely denying renting to sex workers, establishing ID for guests, and so forth, then they would need to be replaced. So from July 2020 to September 2023, I logged 59 visits to the motel. For most of these meetings, I was actively engaged with Shirley Zhao and Tony Ding, discussing on how best to employ these corrective measures. I provided direct feedback and police enforcement. I was direct in my expectations and made it clear that without management and employees' full commitment to our success would be limited at best. So now we're moving to early 2023, and now 2.5, 3 years have gone by. By that time, my opinion was that the Highlight Motel's management and ownership was not making the needed improvements. The owners and employees would agree to corrective measures in meetings, but ultimately fail to follow through on their word. As a result, I contacted the LA City Attorney's Office, the City Nuisance Abatement Program. What followed were two separate meetings with motel ownership in which they were advised of the unacceptable levels of crimes and arrests that were occurring on the property. Mitigation steps were discussed. Owners were advised of the consequences of failing to follow through on their commitment. And in both meetings, I was assured that the necessary steps would be taken to improve conditions. And both of these meetings were summarized in writing and sent by certified mail to the motel ownership. So even after these meetings with the city attorney's office, the motel was still not taking corrective action. And 5 different summary points. Number 1, they lack the proper security measures still, even after 3 years. Many times they would position the security guards to the rear of the property. They'd be inside their vehicles and not interacting at a point of contact where the public would have access to the property. I went over this several times, but it was never adhered to. Number 2, the open pedestrian gates. There's 2 different ways to get into the Highlight Motel. Number 1 is a vehicle gate, which separates the public way sidewalk to the parking lot. They have a vehicle gate that was inoperable the entire time over a 3-year period. My suggestion was that they fix this gate so they can control vehicles coming on the property. Was never done. Number 2, there's a pedestrian gate which controls access from the parking lot to the courtyard of the motel and to the room access. Many times on my travels into the parking lot, I would see this gate wide open. It was addressed with the motel several times that they needed to control that point of access to the motel. Unfortunately, that was never followed up on. The motel staff was still not properly trained. They weren't establishing identification of guests. They didn't have the ability to ID vehicles that were on their property. And many times when I tried to make this known to the motel workers outside the presence of the management, they were defiant with the police. There was still no consistent enforcement of a parking permit system on the lot, and this motel staff was still renting to Johns and sex workers. So what does the data say? So by late 2023 and early 2024, I'm going to reference the zoning hearing notes. And on page 18 through 45, it says there were at least 43 arrest reports, 146 investigative reports. Now, these are crimes that have happened on the property, and over 186 radio calls. Many of these crimes were violent felonies, which included weapons and narcotics arrests, robberies, rape, aggravated assault, carjacking, attempted murder, and a double homicide. Needless to say, this places enormous strain on police resources. It makes it difficult for us to respond to other 911 calls, especially when the incidents involve arrests and multiple units are required to respond to the motel. This profoundly affects the surrounding area. We have to remember there's a high school that's just 2 blocks north of this motel, and the entire area is surrounded by multi-unit and single-family dwellings. My recommendations is this. I've made every effort in my mind to work with the Highlight Motel to increase the incidence of crime on the property. I've been transparent in my communication and clear with my expectations. And at this point, I can only deduce that the ownership is unwilling or incapable of making the corrected changes. Therefore, my recommendation is that this community will move to revocate the land use permit for the Highlight Motel. I base this recommendation on the history and continued illegal activity on the motel grounds, and most importantly, the ownership's refusal and inability to improve conditions as we previously agreed upon in several meetings. The owners have had ample time over the last 4 years to make lasting changes to avoid this hearing. In my opinion, they have not acted in good faith to solve the problem. I fear if it's left unchecked, will only continue to deteriorate the quality of life of those living in the community. I thank you for your time, and I hope you look favorably on my recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Something to add? Go ahead.
Good morning. My name's Officer Loomis. I'll be as brief as I can. I'm the senior lead officer who has taken over after Officer Homoka has left the particular area. I have been there since the end of 2023. When I first got into that area, I was met on January 7th of 2024. There was a double homicide in that parking lot. It was one of my first interactions with the hotel and the hotel staff. As well as that double homicide, somebody else was also shot as well. That was followed up by a site visit that I had conducted with zoning so we can kind of see the area for ourselves. During that site visit, there were scantily clad women dressed in lingerie. This was midday. There was one lady having an argument with someone who was identifiable as her pimp. And this was all done in front of officers. This was done in front of city entities that were there to take a look in broad daylight. I've since been working with our vice officers who've conducted numerous operations, and I have a letter that I'll read, which is from our vice supervisor who couldn't make it here today. And the letter is as follows. Southeast vice officers have made numerous prostitution-related arrests at the Highlight location, located at 10321 South Broadway. While conducting prostitution enforcement along the Figueroa corridor, officers have followed the commercial sex workers with the quote-unquote Johns from Figueroa Street into the Highlight Motel. Officers have made arrests for 647B PC, 647A PC, and 653.23 PC. Vice officers have also made arrests for pimping and pandering while at the Highlight Motel, as the commercial sex workers meet with their pimps to give them the money that was paid for their, that was utilized in paying for their sexual acts that were conducted with the Johns. Officers have had contact with management during our investigations who have been uncooperative and unwilling to provide information for the rooms in which they rent. After numerous arrests and investigations at the location, management expressed that just because the females are scantily dressed, bringing multiple people in and out of rooms for minutes at a time, they are not aware that anything nefarious is happening, claiming there is no issue. Management and workers at the motel have yelled at officers, instructed officers how to do their job, while stating that they are correctly running their motel. At times, management and their workers decline to speak with officers and state, due to the language barrier, that they aren't sure what is being said. As a vice operator, we conduct motel checks, which include verifying the registration of each room being utilized at the Highlight Motel. During these motel checks, management has been reluctant to show the information and again claim that they don't know what officers are talking about. We have conducted undercover operations with gang and narcotics divisions, where we send an informant to purchase narcotics in the motel parking lot. Those selling the narcotics park inside of the parking lot on the property and conduct the sale from their vehicles. Management has seen these interactions and failed to act. Prostitution and human trafficking activity at this motel are very prevalent. This motel has since had restrictions, but officers are aware of activity still occurring in the location, both inside the motel rooms as well as on the property within the parking lot. The Highlight Motel should not run as a motel and should no longer be in operation. That is signed Sergeant Jennifer Cohen, 38352. And that is all that I have.
Great, thank you. Next, I'm going to ask the appellant to come forward, and you'll have 3 minutes. You can divide your time however you like between you. But you have 3 minutes total.
The appellants.
Sorry, is the mic on?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
just keep it close.
Okay, sure. I'm Frank Weiser. I'm the attorney for the appellants. I do want to make a point of procedure. I think the 3 minutes, giving the city or the zoning administrator and the police officer more than 3 minutes, much more than 3 minutes, and not giving it to us is a violation of the procedural due process clause of the 14th Amendment and also the Equal Protection Clause. So I do want to raise that for the record, and I do have some comments, and it may go beyond 3 minutes, and I would appreciate if I would be allowed to do so. I had raised certain constitutional objections at the zoning administrator hearing. I've represented other hotels and motels in the area, and I'm going to raise that again here today just for the record. I raised an objection under the First Amendment Petition and Grievances Clause of the U.S. Constitution, the Fourth Amendment Search and Seizure Clause, the Fifth Amendment Takings Clause, and the 14th Amendment Procedural and Substantive Due Process Clause and Equal Protection Clause. But all that being said, from a practical standpoint, I don't understand why the city is doing what it's doing, especially on the first time that a motel owner is brought in before this committee or before the city for claimed alleged nuisance activity. First of all, the evidence was very clear at the zoning administrator hearing. I attended, I represented the owner and the appellant, that whatever Officer Hamaoka, or whatever the original meeting was with the Rampart Division, the owners and appellants complied. They did everything. They put in security guard. They put in a security gate. They did whatever was required on the suggested list of recommendations by the police. That's number one. So we contend that there is no nuisance activity, especially after the meeting with Rampart Division. But putting that aside even assuming in arguendo that the factual showing is that there is a nuisance activity, there's a case called Bauer versus City of San Diego at 75 Cal Ave 4th, 1281, 1999. It deals with revocations of permits, and the 4th District Court of Appeals, Division 1 in San Diego ruled and held in a published opinion that because a revocation of a permit involves strict due process, you've got to protect the property owner that they don't go out of business, the governing body or the agency that deals with the issue has to see and show whether they considered lesser, stricter remediation. The goal in California is when you have a nuisance property, the goal is to remediate the property, not to put the owner out of business. That's the overarching goal that our legislature has enacted in various laws under the red light abatement law, under the health and safety code. And that, I believe, is also the overarching purpose beyond in the ordinance. Where is, on a first time, I've never seen a city other than this city, bringing somebody in on the first time for a claimed nuisance activity. Why aren't there lesser remediation goals that have been suggested? Give the owner a chance to remediate if, in fact, you do find that there's nuisance activity. And then, after the remediation, if, in fact, that cannot be corrected, then you go to the next step of revoking a permit. But I don't see why the city is doing it other than perhaps there may be some other goals here in terms of development. Finally, I was the attorney for Magic Carpet Inn right off the 110 freeway. I came before this body when Councilman Dawson Harris was leading the Plum Committee. That had to be equally the allegations that we have here. And that motel was not put out of business. The Foxy Motor Inn, I know of that because I know of the party who owns it, and I know that the same zoning administrator held all of those hearings. That motel was not put out of business. So we feel those are similarly situated properties, and if they are and they weren't put out of business, this property should also not be put out of business. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you, sir, are you the appellant as well?
Yes. My name is Marshall Young. Good afternoon. I represent the ownership as well. I personally met with City Attorney Nancy Hagan and also Officer Barra on May 7th of 2024. So I disagree with the officer's statement that the property has not done anything to abate any of the complaints that were at least said in that meeting. So some of the things that Ms. Hagan had followed up in a letter to myself was she requested to install a surveillance camera, which we already had, and we also gave access to LAPD, right? So they can log in, get access to the cameras when they needed to. She also recommended that we issue hang tags for vehicles, so when officers are allowed, when they come onto the property, they can see that these are actually guests and not that these are not abandoned cars, which we have done. Prohibit visitor parking, which we have, with the hang tags. Retain a tow company to enforce the parking lot rules, which we did. We sent that information over to the Officer Vera. Retain a private patrol operator, which we did. And then also maintain a valid trespass arrest authorization form, which we sent like the day or the next day to Officer Vera. The items that, admittedly, that when we met that we found it difficult to implement was to consider online booking, right? Because it's tough to, such a small property to have that type of presence and have that type of guests, because all the guests are local guests. They're not coming from far away to come stay in that area. So we felt that the cost of setting up the online booking was probably cost prohibitive. However, I spoke to Sherry, which is the owner, and we can consider that if that's something that would help this hearing. We can definitely try that. The other thing was accepting credit cards, and so we have also implemented accepting credit cards. So it's not just cash, and so we're accepting credit cards through a merchant processing system, and also we will consider taking online booking if that would help.
Okay.
That's all I need to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, next, before we move to public comment, we're going to hear from the representative from Councilman Harris Dawson's office, whose district this property is in.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. My name is...
Can you pull the mic?
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. Good afternoon, honorable members of the council. My name is Terry Osborne, Planning Deputy for Council President Marquise Harris Dawson of the 8th District, and I'm here today to speak on item number 1. This site has a long history of nuisances and criminal activity that the operator has failed to address, and consequently has a detrimental impact on the surrounding community. The property abuts single-family homes, a bus stop for a major transit line, and is within walking distance of multiple schools and churches. The city has expended substantial resources responding to emergencies and crime prevention at this location. It is a well-known hangout spot for gang members, and prostitution and sex trafficking runs rampant at this site. LAPD responds regularly to violent crimes such as shootings, assaults, and a homicide at the beginning of 2024. And most notably, the recent rescue of an underage sex trafficking victim found in the motel. Here, I'll defer to LAPD for specific questions. However, despite these efforts, the sheer number of calls for service and violent crime demonstrates that a permanent intervention is needed and warranted. Therefore, I urge this committee to uphold the Department of City Planning's decision to deny the appeal and discontinue the motel's use in the interest of public safety.
Great, thank you very much. Next, we're going to move to public comment, and for the benefit of the folks who sign up for multiple items, we had multiple item opportunity at the beginning of this meeting. You were not here for that, so you missed that opportunity. However, like any member of the public, you're entitled to speak to 2 minutes, so you can speak. You can choose 2 different items, and you can have 1 minute per item, like anybody else. But the time for multiple items is closed, but you can get 1 minute per item. So I'm going to read some names. Folks who've signed up for this item, and we'll go from there. Yanet Martinez, Leticia Luna, Itzel Ronson, Bertha Benuelos, Greg Perez, Marta Ruiz, Shirley Zhao. I'll stop right there, and then if you've heard your name, come on up. You don't have to go in the exact order of which you were called, and you'll get 1 minute each. Okay, ma'am, go ahead, tell us which name you signed up under, and you have 1 minute.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Leticia Luna y soy miembro voluntario de Community Colecho. Cuando hablamos...
Un momento para traducir.
Good afternoon. My name is Leticia Luna, and I am a volunteer member for Community Coalition.
Continúa.
Cuando hablamos con los vecinos del área donde se ubica el Motel Highlight en la Broadway, y la 104. Lo primer-
When we talk with various neighbors who live in the area, surrounding area of this hotel, which is on the intersection of Broadway and 104th,
Lo primero que nos dicen es que el hecho de que ahí opera ese motel, es un problema para los que tenemos que transitar por el área.
and the first thing they say is that in regards to the operations of this hotel, it's one of the main problems for many of the transits in the area.
Prostitución, drogación, escándalos y hasta balazos y muertos son cosas cotidianas en el área.
From prostitution to scandals to drug addiction, as well as shootings and deaths have been the common things in this property.
Nosotros unidos para que nuestras calles estén limpias y nos sintamos seguros de transitar por las calles, pero eso no es posible con ese motel operando.
And we have united together to try and keep our streets clean and to be able to travel on our streets, and we have not been able to do that.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next speaker, go ahead.
各位在座大家好，我是 Shirley， 我现在这里起誓，我给哈马克Hyson work 6年，跟他一起工作6年，我给他当线人，帮助他赶走偷车贼，阻止了很多犯罪活动，还抓捕了一些犯罪分子。
Yeah, did we have a translator? Did they request a translator?
我是 Shirley。
Hi, my name is Shirley.
哈马克 Tyson， 我跟他一起工作6年。
So I've been working with Tyson Hamaka for 6 years.
我给他当线人。
So I am his testimony.
线人。
线人 ，OK.
就是跟他一起工作。
Okay, work with him.
And 我经常电话联系他，帮助赶走偷车贼。
So we contact with each other on phone and then to kick away all these people who theft the cars.
And 一些犯罪活动，抓捕了一些犯罪分子。
And we also prevent a lot of crime activities and also capture a lot of crimes.
Yeah.
他经常表扬我做得很好。
And he always give me compliments, saying that I'm doing good.
所以 Magic Carpet 做得不好，我做得很好。我们旅馆。
And the translator, if you could speak into the microphone.
Do so well, but I'm doing really good.
所以我们根据哈马克要求装camera， 我就装 camera。
According to Hamaka's order, and then we actually installed the cameras.
我装了2套 system， 公路上1套，我们旅馆1套，全部密码给了他，他随时可以从我们的那个 camera 上看到所有的客人。
So we installed 2 sets of cameras, and then we also provided passwords to him, and then he's able to see the activity, the video, anytime.
我们作为老板，我们不愿意看到我们旅馆有那个纪律以及帮派，我们很不喜欢他们，但是我们看到他们，我们就把他赶走。
As the owners, we don't like to see a lot of crime activity or gang activities, and if we see any this type of activities, we actually kick them out.
我们赶走他，被流浪汉纪律把我们的经理打了，缝了14针。
And we kicked him out, and then we also had a homeless, and he actually hit one of our managers, and then he actually had to have 14 stitches.
我去赶他们，也经常被他们打，我们的保安也赶他们，也赶不走。
And when we kicked them out, I got hit for several times as well. And our security also tried to kick them out as well, but it's really difficult.
我每次都天天站这儿，哈马卡每次都说我做得非常好，我不知道为什么现在给我这么严重的警告，给我们要拿我们的执照。
I'm doing this all the time, and then Hamaka saying that we're doing really well, but I'm not sure why that they are going to take away our permits,
我
business
们
permits.
我们就在110 freeway 那个桥下面，很多那个流浪汉每天都来偷我们的房间， 不给我们的钱，我们叫警察，警察都不来的，从来。
So we are just right next to the 110 bridge right there. And then a lot of homeless came over and then actually occupy our rooms right there. And we call police all the time, but they never came.
Okay, we need to finish.
为什么在我们这个 property 发生的事
because
情
you
都
just
算在
don't
我们
start?
李玉文的头上？不是政府的错，是我们老板的错。
And then every time all these activities was going on, and then, I don't know why it's not a government's fault, but it's the hotel's fault.
Okay, thank you very much. It's just 1 minute per person. Thank you. Okay, next speaker. Please, we could keep clapping down to no clapping in between speakers. We want to get through people as fast as possible. Go ahead, ma'am.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Janet.
Good afternoon, my name is Janet.
Soy miembro voluntario de Community Coalition.
I'm a volunteer member for Community Coalition.
Nosotros trabajamos en el sur de Los Ángeles.
We work in South LA.
Para el área que vivimos, mejor sea un lugar donde nos sintamos bien de ser residentes.
In the area we live in, it's better for us to feel comfortable in the place that we live.
Cuando hablamos con los vecinos del área donde se ubica el Motel Highlight,
And when we talk to our neighbors in the area that is close to the Highlight Hotel,
en Broadway y la 104, lo primero que nos dicen es que el hecho de que ahí opere ese motel es un problema para los que tenemos que transitar por el área.
and this hotel is located on Broadway and 104th. And the first thing that we hear from these neighbors is the fact that this hotel is in operation is problematic for us to be able to walk around.
La prostitución, drogadicción, escándalos y hasta balazos y muertos son cosa cotidiana en el área.
From prostitution, drug addiction, scandals, shootings, and even deaths, those have been common activities in that area.
Nosotros trabajamos unidos para que nuestras calles estén limpias y nos sintamos seguros de transitar por las calles, pero no, eso no es posible con ese motel operando.
And we work together to try and keep our streets clean and make it a place where we can feel safe to walk around. And with that hotel in operation, we are not able to do so.
Desde hace 10 meses que mandamos más de 50 cartas con quejas de los residentes del área y que atendimos una audiencia en donde incluso la policía se quejó de los problemas de violencia que ocurren en este motel.
And for the last 10 months, we've been sending over 10 letters for complaints, and we've even attended a hearing where even the police have complained about the criminal activity there.
Y aún no hay una decisión final para nosotros. Esperamos que esta vez sí se cancelen de la licencia para operar en
Muchas
el
gracias. Es su tiempo.
And still, even though we do not have a final decision, we hope that this time we can remove the permit for this property.
Gracias. Go ahead, welcome.
Okay. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Berta Bañuelos y soy miembro de Community Coalition, soy voluntaria para muchas cosas que se hacen ahí para la comunidad.
Un segundo, por
para
favor.
traducir.
Yes, hello, my name is Berta Banuelos. I am a proud member of Community Coalition, and I have also worked as a volunteer for many different organizations in activism.
Desde hace 10 meses que mandamos más de 50 cartas con quejas de los residentes del área y que atendimos una audiencia en donde incluso la policía se quejó de los problemas de violencia que ocurren en ese motel.
So as of 10 months, we have sent over 50 letters with complaints from residents requesting a hearing, which in fact was also attended by the police from Los Angeles, complaining about the violence and other type of activities going on in the motel area.
Y aún no hay una decisión final para nosotros.
And there is still not a final decision taken for us.
Esperamos que esta vez sí le cancelen la licencia
And we hope that this time you guys do cancel their permit
para operar el motel y que tengamos la esperanza de vivir un poco más en paz en el área. Muchas gracias.
and we hope that you can finally prevent them from operating their motel so that we can finally have hope of living in peace and having safety in the streets. Thank you.
Gracias.
Next speaker? Welcome.
Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Marta Ruiz y soy miembro de voluntario de Community Coalition. Nosotros, cuando hablamos con los vecinos del área donde se ubica el motel Elite en la Broadway y la 104, lo primero que nos
Un
dicen
momento
es...
para traducir.
Gracias. Yes, hello, my name is Marta Ruiz. I'm a volunteer for Community Coalition. And when we talked to the residents about the surrounding area of the motel located on Broadway and 104th Street,
Continúa.
Dicen, es que el hecho de que ahí opera ese motel es un problema para los que tenemos que transitar por el área.
the fact that that particular motel is in operation in that area is a big problem for us who are people walking around in that area.
Desde hace 10 meses que mandamos más de 50 cartas con quejas de los residentes del área y que atendimos una audiencia en donde incluso la policía se quejó de los problemas de violencia que ocurren en ese motel y aún no.
Un segundo. And yeah, as of, it's been 10 months since we've sent over 50 letters with complaints from the residents requesting a meeting, which we attended, and not only that, but the police department also attended with complaints about the violent activity going on in the motel area.
Great. Es su tiempo es final.
Thank you.
Next person? Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I stand before you as a representative of Burden Tech High School, but more importantly, I stand in front of you as a representative of South LA community. The Highlight Motel has become more than just a business in the neighborhood. It has become a symbol of exploitation, crime, and danger. I had the opportunity to participate in the first ever human trafficking conference this morning. They laid out the harsh reality. Traffickers prey on vulnerable individuals, using motels like the Highlight as their hubs for operation. We cannot turn a blind eye. Every day that this motel remains open under its current conditions is another day that victims are trapped in a cycle of abuse. South LA is strong, resilient, and it's a big community. We fought for better schools, safer streets, and more opportunities for our youth. We cannot allow the Highlight Motel or any other establishment like it to undo the progress we have made. Let's stand together, let's protect our community, and let's make it clear. We cannot tolerate business that profit off the suffering of others. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to read a few more names. And before our next speaker, we have Gloria Yu Chen. I think we read those names. Joanna, Jenny Liu, James Fan, GH6A, Margarita, Idenia, Vanessa, Fernando, Richard, James Chung, Asol Arajo. We'll stop there. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Bettis. I'm a public educator. I'm at Burden Tech High School, which is a couple blocks away from the Highlight Motel. I'm here today. I'm really here. When we first heard about the revocation process, we gathered letters from our students and families. And after talking to our students and just realizing, seeing their stories and testimonies about their experiences and feeling unsafe walking by the Highlight Motel, it's very clear to us that it needs to be revoked at this point. I think when I stand on behalf of 600 students and families, and to hear that remediation, they're way past remediation. We want to keep our South LA community safe for our kids. That we owe it to them. So I want to ensure that their voices are heard today. I want to see that it is revoked. And that's really it. I trust the due diligence of this commission to do it, and hope to see the revocation in the next time coming. Thank you.
Hey, 你好，大家好，我是 Gloria。
Hi, my name is Gloria.
OK， 旅馆旁边的那个公交车站经常发生打架斗殴事件。
So the bus stop right next to the motel, there are a lot of those fights going on.
然后那个110桥下的流浪汉经常偷我们的房间，破坏我们的门窗，然后偷走我们的床单和被子，然后我们自己赶走了流浪汉。
And then also the homeless underneath the 110 freeway, they frequently occupy our room, and they also broke our doors and windows, and also stole our mattresses and also blankets.
然后流浪汉还经常在那个立交桥下面开枪，然后放火烧，然后这些事情报警都算到我们的旅馆头上，我们觉得很冤枉。
And we kicked those homeless out for several times. And those homeless people, they usually fire the gun underneath that 110 freeway. And underneath the bridge, there has been a lot of fire setting up for several times. And then, but they always say that it's our motel's responsibility.
自从110桥下的流浪汉被驱逐以后，我们旅馆就没有报警记录。
And after all these homeless got kicked out, and then there hasn't been any any of those booking records.
流浪汉还经常偷我们的房间，然后我们赶不走就叫警察，警察不帮我们赶流浪汉，然后我们还去法院申请了驱逐令。
And then all these homeless, they occupy our rooms, and then we always call the police for help, but the police didn't come to drive away those homeless, and then they asked us to go to the court.
这些都是应该警察所做的，但是不保护我们纳税人的权利，还来怪我们旅馆的报警次数太多。
And we believe that those things are because like all this doing because of those police. They didn't try to police our right as those taxpayers, but they always blame us that we call the police for way too many times.
然后我就说到这里，好，谢
And
谢大
that's
家
it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next speaker.
Yeah. 我是Highlight Motel的工作人员。我们按照这个警官的要求，把我们的停车场用铁栏杆一分为二，然后我们加了2道铁门。
So I am one of the workers in Highlander. And then according to those police order, and we added two metal gates and also added 2 fences.
然后警官说我们的停车场的 parking lot 的那个灯不够亮，我们然后把它加强了。
And then the police say that the lighting in our parking lot was not bright enough, and then we actually make it lighter.
然后他要求我们停车场所有的摄像机都要给他。
And then he also said that we need to provide all the cameras to him.
然后又要求我们把我们邻街的2条街的要装摄像头，我们也装了。
And also they order us to install 2 cameras on 2 streets, and we also installed them as well.
然后我不知道他为什么不高兴。Thank you.
But I'm not sure why he's not so happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Okay, my name is James Fan, and I heard some problem about the motel. They want to close the motel. My opinion, I think that's not the right choice. And as a motel owner, sure, they have a lot of problem, but they do their best. They try to do everything to support the government, but some problem not belong to the motel, they can finish to resolve, and I think some of the problem belong to the social, like the police department, the government, some like drug dealers, some fighting homeless. If you close this business and some other business like this is high-line motel, and maybe low-line motel will be built and still the same social problem. And as a motel owner, they hire some employees, they have family, and okay, that's all.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Margarita.
Good afternoon, my name is Margarita.
Yo soy un cliente
I'm a client.
habitual de este motel.
I'm a frequent client of this motel.
El motel ha sido una opción confiable y accesible para mí.
And this motel has been a trustworthy and accessible option for me
Y para muchos otros.
and for many other people.
Proporciona un lugar conveniente y cómodo
It provides a convenient and comfortable place
para quedarse y se ajusta a mi presupuesto.
For people to stay, and it also is beneficial for me given my budget.
Al contrario que alternativas más caras como Hilton,
Which is in a big contrast to other alternatives such as the Hilton.
este motel ofrece un gran valor y accesible que muchos de nosotros apreciamos.
This hotel is a great value and it's very accessible, which many of us appreciate
Profundamente.
deeply.
Cerrar este motel nos dejaría sin un lugar accesible donde alojarnos.
And closing this motel would leave us without an accessible place to stay.
Es su tiempo.
Lo que crearía dificultades significativas para mí
And this would cause significant difficulties for me.
y para otras.
Muchas gracias. Es su tiempo.
Señora, se le acabó su tiempo.
Gracias. Okay, next speaker.
Thank you.
我是 Richard 王，我也是在洛杉矶有个旅馆，虽然不在downtown，但是可以提提我的意见。应该是10年以前，应该在 Lake Sherman 和 San Fernando Road 上有很多妓女。
So my name is Richard Wong. I also own a motel in LA, but not in downtown. And then over there on
San Fernando Road Lake Sherman。
in South Fernando Road in Langer, and over there lecture, and there were a lot of prostitutes.
Yeah. Before the police, complete the motel all the time, but later they changed the strategy. The police act just to catch the prostitute. So later, that area no more problem. So I think the best way is cooperate with the motel, focus on the prostitute, focus on the drug dealer, not, motel owner is now not law enforcement. We have the law authority to detain or whatever. So I think the best way not to focus on motel, focus on the crime. Okay.
Next speaker.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Tony. I had worked this motel many years. I come here, I just want to say I support this motel. We don't want it to close. Because I don't think it is hotel's fault. Nearby the gas station, convenience store, the incident happen more often than this motel. Close this motel won't change anything. I hope keep this hotel going. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm going to read a few more names. Adiana, Vanessa, Fernando, James Chung, Daniel Isidoro, Ines Benitez, Michael Isidoro, and Yarachet Sanchez.
Buenas tardes, soy Idania y soy trabajadora. Le escribo para expresar mi profunda preocupación por el cierre del motel.
Yes, hello, my name is Idania. I am a worker at the hotel, and I'm here to express my deep worries about the closure of the hotel.
Este no es solo un negocio, sino también algo en lo que he dedicado décadas de mi vida.
This place is not just a business, it is somewhere where I have dedicated decades of my life.
Tengo una fuerte conexión emocional con el motel. He trabajado aquí durante muchos años.
I have a deep emotional connection to the hotel, and I have worked here for many years.
Si el motel cerrara, sería devastador para mi familia. Perder mi trabajo significaría perder mi fuente de ingresos y no poder mantener a mis hijos ni pagar mis útiles. No puedo afrontar esta situación.
And closing this hotel would be devastating for my family, as for me, without having a job and a way of making income, I would not be able to support my kids and I would not be able to pay utilities.
Espero sinceramente que se pueda encontrar una solución para que el motel siga funcionando. Gracias por tomar en cuenta mis inquietudes.
And I really hope that we can find a solution that involves keeping the motel going. And thank you so much for taking into consideration my insecurities and my worries.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Vanessa, and I've been working for 3 years at Highlight, and as all the workers and myself, we are working together with the police, trying to stop renting to prostitution and people we know are criminals. I know that prostitution is a big problem in this area, and there's also a lot of crime, but we always work with the law enforcement. Every time something happens in the motel or around, we provide police access to our cameras. We also have a group chat where we send the information of prostitutes so that we keep a record of who we should not be renting to. We also keep the IDs of customers until checkout to avoid any problems or to have their information if needed. I believe we are not the problem, and I ask that you consider keeping the motel open.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Fernando Isidoro. I've been working at the motel for more than 6 years, and I believe the problem is not the motel, but the community itself. For example, under the bridge, there's a lot of homeless people, a lot of trash dumping, and like gang members that hang around there. And the hotel is not the main, we're not able to control that area. It's out of our property. It's something that is going on and been going on before even the motel. If the hotel was to get closed, I would just not just lose my job, but I'll lose my income. I will lose the ability to pay my rent, my bills. I believe we are working with the police department to try to better and make the hotel safer for the community. For example, we are now requiring for both customers to come up and provide IDs before checking into the rooms. We have installed cameras. We have installed more than 12 cameras that are located around the property. I think that'll be it.
Great, thank you. Next speaker.
Do I start? Okay. Hello, my name is Asael, and I am a regular customer. I support keeping the motel open. This place has been important to me because it provides an affordable and quiet space where I can go to study after college. Not everyone has a peaceful environment at home, and having a place like this makes a big difference. It's a valuable resource for people who need a temporary place to stay or just a quiet space. And I believe closing it would take away any option that many in the community rely on. That'll be it.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, this is Joanne Chu. I'm the president of the Greater Los Angeles Hotel Motel Association. I'm also the one of the owner of the motel. So as the owner, we understand that the security is very important. So for some reason, so we have the 2 or 3 people at the night shift or the second B shift. But overall, if you can see outside the hotel, they do have a lot of people hanging around the motel. Nothing we can do. We call the police, we call the security, we have the security. Nothing they can do, okay? What we can do, we call the city, we call the county. The county's drive the car, the police sheriff drive the car all day long. They grabbed someone, leave someone. They took the today, tomorrow they show up. So people always have the finger middle to me, okay? Nothing we can do. So what this is not the sheriff's fault, it's not the motel's fault, it's security. Please consider, give us a chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
大家好，
Hello, everybody.
我是海乃旅馆业主的朋友，目睹了他们经营的辛酸和无奈。
I am the friend of the owner of Highland Motel, and I also just witnessed all their hardship.
旅馆的问题是美国社会问题，关闭旅馆解决不了治安的问题。
So motel issue is also the issue in America, and closing down the motel is not able to resolve the problem.
类似一个问题，我今天来到法庭，我在外边看到这个法庭的这个院子，到处都是 homeless。
So with this type of problem, I also came to the court today, and outside the court, I saw so many homeless.
难道我们能关闭法庭吗？
And then, are we going to close down the courts?
所以政府不作为，削减警力，削减警力经费，警员严重缺员。旅馆遇到问题的时候，打电话警察不到场，有好多治安问题，比如说流浪汉、妓女、毒品，是政府不作为，政府无能，并不是商家的问题，并不是商家的错。
So it's all government's non-doing because of lack of police, lack of the police personnel. When the motel caught and then the police not coming over and eventually caused a problem such as homelessness, prostitution, and drug issue.
最近新的总统上任以后，我发现警力加强了。
And after the new president coming up recently, I found out there are more police forces now.
力度也加大了。
And then I also see that there's larger intensity.
这个旅馆外围的这个 homeless， 你现在已经挪到别的地方去了。
and all those homeless people outside of the motel, they are being moved away to another place.
好，所以我强烈的呼吁法庭要给予公正、公平，让我们纳税人能为美国多做点贡献，把这个钱用在正地方上。
Okay, and that's your time, so go ahead.
For the fair treatment from the courts, and then allow all these budget using on the all these budget use on the correct.
Great, thank you. And we'll have the next speaker. Before you speak, I've called all the names on the list, so if there's anybody else here who wishes to speak to this item, who used one of their 1 minute on this item, please feel free to line up, and I see you out at LA, we'll get to you too. So we're going to continue through the names, and if you're here to speak on this item but you haven't heard your name, you're welcome to line up. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, my name is Daniel, and I'm a regular customer of this motel. This motel has been a reliable and affordable option for me and many others. It provides a convenient and comfortable place to stay, and it fit within my budget, unlike more expensive alternatives such as Hilton. This motel offers great value and accessibility that many of us deeply appreciate. Closing this motel will leave us without an affordable place to stay, which will create significant difficulty for me and others in similar situations. I kindly ask you to reconsider any plan to shut it down.
Thank you. Next speaker.
That me?
Okay.
You want me to go?
Go ahead.
Okay, tell me when you're ready. All right, so Inside Safe, huge failure. That's the owners of the hotel's fault. LAPD calling 911 or calling, the non-emergency number and you're on hold for an hour and then you're cut off. That's the owners of the hotel's fault. LAPD comes with, we decriminalized everything in this state. That's the hotel's fault, right? There's no more interventions for people that are looking at crimes. That's their fault too. Everything, the problems of the city falls on the owners of this hotel, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to make an example of them, right? Because it's all their fault. The fault and the error is yours, the cities, the mayors, LAPD, all of it. The legislatures, the voters, all of us, everyone has contributed to this mess that we're in. But no, you're going to take away the livelihood of this company and these people, and what's going to happen? They're going to be safer. Everyone's going to be safe now that you get rid of them. That now the city's safe, please.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hola, mi nombre es Inés Benítez. Lo único que quiero pedirles es de que no cierren el hotel. El hotel siempre ha sido más barato para uno que no alcanza a veces a pagar ciertas cantidades.
Okay.
A mí me ha ayudado mucho.
Señora
Antes
Inés.
tenía yo mi
Señora
niño
Inés.
chiquito.
Señora Inés.
Un momento para traducir. Un momento, por favor. Traducir.
Hi, my name is Nendelites. The only thing I wanted to say is please do not close this hotel. This hotel offers a very affordable option for many of us who can't afford a regular hotel.
Continuar.
Hubo en veces no alcanzaba, pero de todos modos ellos me rentaban y yo seguía en el hotel, me daban la chance de quedarme.
And there are even times where I couldn't afford to pay, and they were allowed me to still rent a room from them, and I wouldn't have been able to do that at other hotels.
No veo el problema en que lo quieran cerrar porque ha sido a donde yo me he dado cuenta, ha sido buen hotel y hemos estado en los precios bien.
And I don't really understand what the problem is and that we would want to close this hotel. From my point of view, it has been a good hotel for me to be able to stay in.
Es todo, gracias.
Gracias, muchas
That's it,
gracias.
thank you.
Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Mike Isidoro. I'm here because I support Highlight. I'm a regular customer for years for this hotel. This hotel has been reliable and affordable, actually for me and many others. I provide a convenient and comfortable place to stay with my wife. It is fit with my budget, and I like more expensive Genitivo, such as Hilton. This motel offers great value and Livable that make us deeply appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker.
Hola, muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Ciara C.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sierra C.
Soy un cliente habitual de este hotel.
I'm a regular customer at this hotel.
El hotel ha sido una opción confiable y accesible para mí.
And this hotel has been a reliable and affordable option for me,
Y para muchos otros.
as well as for others.
Proporciona un lugar confiable y económico para quedarse.
It's provided an affordable and a reliable place for someone to stay.
Y no veo por qué lo quieran cerrar. Todos modos, si lo cierran, la delincuencia, la prostitución no se va a acabar.
And I don't see why you would want to close the hotel, because even if you close the hotel, the criminal activity and the prostitution isn't going to end.
Es todo. Gracias.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I am one of this homeless prostitute.
我不想当妓女，但是那些帮派强迫我当妓女。
So I don't want to be a prostitute. However, all these gang members force me to become a prostitute.
我问了那个 council member， 那个人还有那个人，我望他们帮助我，但是他们从来都不帮助我。
So I asked those council members over there, and I asked them for help, but they never helped me.
有的时候我给警察局打电话，他们也不管我。
And sometimes I call the police, and they never really bothered to hear from me.
我和我的丈夫在那里被打了好多次，被强奸过好多次。
So me and my husband over there, and then we were beaten up for several times, and we were being raped for several times as well.
那个酒店的周围非常非常的不安全，我们不可以走路，我们不可以在晚上出门，一旦出门就会被打，就会被强奸。
And around that motel, it is very, very dangerous at nighttime. We cannot walk out there in the evening time. If we walk out there, we are going to be beaten up.
我实在不想当妓女了，我想回到学校，我想找一份工作，但是那些黑帮的人不允许我那样做。
I don't want to be a prostitute anymore. I want to go back to school. I want to work it once again. However, all these gang members, they don't allow me to do all this.
我不知道为什么那些洛杉矶警察局从来都不管这些帮派。
I'm not sure why all these police, they never bother to manage all these gang members.
那些流浪汉，他们每天都去在强奸，除了我以外，很多很多的变性人。
So all these homeless people, they rape a lot of people besides me, a lot of those transgenders.
我想让这个 Blumenfield 和 Redmond 做一些帮助我们的事情。
I want Blumenfield and Resurrection to do all these things to help us.
Great. Thank you. Next speaker.
Thank you, Nigger Bob. I'm a regular customer of the motel, and the motel has been a reliable, affordable option for me and my many friends that are prostitutes and like to fuck. It provides a convenient, comfortable place for me to stay and fuck, and it's fitting within my budget because I get paid to fuck, unlike more expensive alternatives like Suck Hilton. Suck Hilton charges too much to fuck, so I want to go where Ramen Noodle Husband goes to invest in affordable motel because it's cheap and great for the city to value from. Accessibility for many deeply appreciated, Bob. Now that we know Bob has a tango girlfriend or wife, I want to tango with her and talk about the difficulties for me to fuck in situations like this one for today. Fuck you, Bob. Thank you for the record.
Thank you. And for the folks who are here for the first time, we have folks who
Yes.
do political theater here, and as offensive as it can be, we have to hear it. If you could translate this for the folks. But go ahead, speaker. We have another one.
No, we want to talk. I think John Lee should recuse himself because I think he's used prostitute before in Las Vegas. You like to gamble? And then Nithya needs to recuse herself. She just bought the hotel over in Encino. He used to go and sucky inside that hotel. Now she wants to put felons inside the hotel. This is all that's going to happen. Do you want a bunch of homeless criminals inside the hotel? Drug addicts, drug dealers? Or do you want people to do a little fucking sometimes? Nothing wrong. A man has a dick. He has needs. He need beach. Beach available. Beach get paid. Hotel get paid. Hotel get clean. That's why we have hotel. Prostitution is your fucking problem, Bob. You cannot shut down hotel just because some people sometimes are bad. Save the hotel and save the hotel and fuck Israel. Thank you.
Okay, there are no, let the record reflect, everyone who wishes to speak on this item has had an opportunity to speak on this item. So now we will move to committee discussion with the city staff that's there. And I guess I'll start off with staff and the police. You know, a lot of things were mentioned here that from the hotel owner's side that they have complied. And I know this has been a very long time. Could you tell us, have they complied with what they've been asked to do over these, and how many years has it been that this has been a problem?
Yes, sir. So I first started looking at the motel in July of 2020. Now, in the first meeting that we did have, there were certain conditions that were requested by the police department, many of which were pretty easy, like trespass authorization, posting signs. Those are pretty standard when it comes to problem properties. Now, they did implement a surveillance system, not right away, but a little later on in 2021 when that went in, I believe. The only problem with that is when you have a surveillance system, you have to maintain it, right? The surveillance system is only as good as the video it shows. So many times when I would go to the property, the cameras were not working, the hard drives were not working. I would stress the importance that if something is broken, we need to fix it. Otherwise, it's useless hardware. So that was a constant challenge of mine as well, of going to the property and only to see, or when the detectives would investigate crimes, they would contact me because I had rapport with the hotel. But in going to the motel and trying to get the video feed to come up, many times they couldn't see it. So that was something that was a great challenge.
Good afternoon. I'm Charlie Roush, the zoning administrator on this particular case. I did field check the site. They had put in a gate, however, it was open at the time that I checked out the site, about 12 noon on a Thursday afternoon. So the gate was there, but it was open, which is a violation of what they're trying to do. Another thing they have tried to do is this hotel is one that offers hourly rates, 3-hour rates. They say that's for truckers who are coming by. However, that is one of the problems that we have in these hotels that have prostitution problem. So we regularly state no hourly rates. It's not an hourly rate, it's a 3-hour rate. However, that is a violation of what they were trying to do. We've had 2 meetings between the city attorney, the police department, and the applicants. They have not followed through on all of the suggestions that they've made, their written determinations of what kind of conditions they should have to operate this place. It is on a signaled intersection on a walk routes to 3 different schools. So when kids have to cross Broadway, which is at that point is both a street with a median and with a secondary street on the side of that, That is a signaled intersection, so the kids have to sit there on the corner when prostitutes are walking the street. And if you ever drive down there, they do walk the street, and they're quite obvious. So those are some of the problems that we've had with this particular site.
Okay. And how would you compare this site to other sites? Because it was also alleged that somehow this is being treated differently. Is this much more egregious than the other sites that you all have dealt with?
Yes, sir. In my opinion, it's much more egregious. And so the reasons for that is, there are a great many motels within Southeast Division, a lot of them on Figueroa Corridor. The data, when I'm doing my investigations or when I'm compiling the data, I'm data-driven. I do my best not to have any kind of, feelings or anything into it. I'm driven by the data because I know that's what's ultimately presented at these hearings. And so these data points of investigative reports, radio calls, and arrests far exceed any other motel to date in this area.
Okay.
I might add to that, you've had testimony here from Officer Loomis that when he took over as the senior lead in that area in the last 10 months, they've been having the same problems that they've previously been cited, so it continues on.
Okay. Colleagues, Mr. Lee?
Thank you. Officer, the representative of the properties made the statement saying that this is the first opportunity that they've been before us been asked to remediate the issues that they're dealing with. Officers, I mean, how many times have you worked with the operators? Is it more than 10, more than 20 different times?
Sir, thank you for asking that question. So as I previously stated in my testimony that I had 59 visits to the motel. Actually, that was a mistake. I did 69 visits to the motel. And whenever we go to a site visit, we have to, in LAPD vernacular, go code 6. And that's something when we're doing an investigation, when we want to notate something, in this case, having to deal with the business owners. So from my logs that I've made note of, I can directly point to certain dates, 9/26, 2022, 9:35 a.m., speaking to Shirley and Tony regarding the excessive radio calls and arrests. Recommended the use of a vehicle gate to control ingress-egress. 12/14/2022, 10:15 a.m. Discuss mitigation measures with Shirley, control of vehicle gate, posting security at entrance of property, installation of pedestrian door on vehicle gate to control access to property. 11/1/2023, talk to Shirley and Tony regarding ongoing issues. Mitigation efforts discussed not being implemented. 1/25/23, 2:30 p.m. Advise Shirley not implementing agreed upon mitigation steps to improve conditions. And these are just ones that I formally made note of. I can't count the number of times when there would be an investigative action being taken by police, or I would show up and observe, like Officer Loomis was saying, you would see prostitutes and Johns in the parking lot, where I would take them aside and tell them, hey, this is not acceptable. If we keep going this way, there's only so many warnings we can get out. But that's just a small amount of the warnings we were able to do.
Thank you, Officer.
Colleagues, any additional comments? Mr. Nazarian.
Thank you. Two quick questions. 186 calls between March 17, 2019 to March 4, 2024, including deadly weapon, battery, robbery, prostitution, soliciting, engaging in prostitution, operating disorderly house, and so on. Of the 186 calls, how many were calls coming from the hotel, motel, requesting for service because of some of the complaints that they were pointing out to? Or are all 186 calls associated with calls being made for issues that they're contributing to, the hotel is contributing to?
Yes, so there are, out of the 186, I don't have an exact number on how many actually came from the motel. Now, the motel did occasionally call regarding business disputes, or sometimes that they had unruly customers or whatnot. But those were probably the two main categories of calls we would get from the motel: employees or managers dealing with unruly customers. The vast majority, though, came from victims, customers of various crimes.
Okay, so vast majority was calls emanating because of their activities. In your experience, a hotel like this in a stretch of 5-year period, what's the average number of calls that come in?
Average in my experience in this area hovers somewhere, it depends, because each motel is run differently. But in my experience, over a year long would probably like maybe one, maybe two a month is what I normally see.
Okay, thank you. 186 calls, and then you don't need to answer this, but just out of curiosity, what's that cost of manpower when it comes to LAPD?
That's a great question, sir. I don't know the answer to that. I would like to point out as well is that I know that when we source calls to the location, it is when we run it through our systems, we run the location, meaning 10321 South Broadway or addresses that just adjacent to it. Now, what thing that I would like to point out is that also in our computer systems, many times when victims call the police, they don't know to say 10321 Broadway. They don't know the address. They'll say 104 in Broadway. So when I ran a cross inquiry through our data systems to check for the intersections of 104 in Broadway and 104 in Olive, because many times when you have victims of crime, that's all they know. When I cross-referenced that and added it to the 186 radio calls, I came to 249 radio calls over the same period.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Colleagues, any additional comments, questions? No, okay. Given the overwhelming amount of calls that you've gotten and the fact that it's gotten this far and it's been through so much, I'm going to recommend that we deny the appeal filed by the LA High Life Property Incorporated and thereby sustain the zoning administrator's determination to discontinue the transient motel use and imposing 6 conditions for the property located at 10309, 10313, 10315, 10317, 10321, and 10325 South Broadway, 316 West 103rd Street, and 317 West 104th Street, and the adoption of the project findings. If we could call the roll. We can call the roll.
Mr. Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Councilmember Hutt.
Aye.
Councilmember Nazarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Rahman.
Yes.
That's 5 members.
Okay. This recommendation is agreed to and moves to full council. Thank you very much. Okay. I think the
Mr.
next
Blumenfield?
the next item.
Mr. Blumenfield?
Yes.
The items that you took on consent at the beginning of the meeting, there's an amendment that is needed to one of those motions.
We haven't taken them on consent yet. We literally just heard item 1 so far. Earlier I indicated that I wanted to take them on consent.
The motions, you mean? I'm referring to items 3 through 7.
Right, we still have to hear those because they're also
Okay.
public speakers on
My
that.
apologies.
No worries. I mentioned earlier that my intent was to hold them on consent, but if we have public comment, we'll hear that first. So the next item is item 2. If you could read that into the record, and let me also state before you do that the council office where this project is has asked for a little bit more time on this and has asked to continue this item. So my recommendation is going to be that we continue this item. However, if somebody has come to speak on this item, they are welcome to speak today, but please know that since the item is being continued, you will also get a chance to speak when we actually take this item up. But as I mentioned, the council office, Councilwoman Hernandez, is working on this item and asked for some additional time. So if you could read that one into the record, please.
Yes, item 2, sir, is a categorical exemption from CEQA, and it includes a report from the East LA APC and an appeal file by Sarah Ramage, and she's appealing the environmental clearance, and this is for the construction of a 2-story single-family dwelling in CD1.
Okay, so that's item 2. We're not going to hear the reports from the staff. We will hear appellants and applicants if they wish, Again, this item is, we're going to recommend it for continuation. We're going to continue it, so you don't need to. But if the applicant or the appellant is here on item 2 and wishes to come forward, now would be the time. Okay, I do not see anyone coming forward. So we have a number of names on here, and I'm not sure if these folks want to come. Mark Kenyon, Pat Williams, Sarah Ramage, Chris Gross, Ali Jivanivji, and Heidi Nariman. If your name has been called, you are welcome to come forward at this time. Again, you will have an opportunity when this item is taken up later. But go ahead and please state your name. And
my name is Mark Kenyon, and I just wanted to say that on behalf of all of us that came today, we'll speak later in March when it's heard again. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, noted that you're here, and we appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item? And for folks who typically do multiple comments, you can use up your second minute on this item, or you can choose one of the other items. If you wish to use your second minute up on this item, you may come forward now, but that will exhaust your time because you've each spoken for 1 minute already. So Mr. Herman, it looks like you wish to use your second minute on this item. You are welcome to do so, but please make your way with a little more haste. You wish to do it as well? Okay.
Oh, I see two-story family, but no measurement for square feet because square foot coverage garage only. I want to build Taj Mahal. I cannot build Taj Mahal, Bob, with approximate square foot. How do you expect me to enterprise into LA if I'm being construction juice? The maintenance of a two-story building is not efficient for me to succeed like ramen noodles' husband who bring business to Los Angeles.
To the topic.
But vacant lot is located near property in Washington. I too want to fuck Glassell Park. I want to build with the Donald Trump facility so that one day all niggers from Bloomfield's district can move into Glassell City and become a part of Ulysses' big fat ass. Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Ms. Auditelli, did you want to use your minute on this? I couldn't tell what you were saying. Did you wish to use your minute?
I just wanted to know, is there going to be public comment?
There's general, as I stated earlier, there is general public comment at the end.
Okay, that's all.
Okay. Seeing no other speakers on this item, colleagues, let's continue. Do we need to take a vote on continuance? Okay, let's vote to continue. Please call the roll.
So the item has been continued to a date undetermined, or is there a date that we're continuing it to?
March what? March 25th.
March 25th. Thank you, sir. I will call the roll. Mr. Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Ms. Hutt.
Aye.
Mr. Nassarian.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Lee.
Aye.
And Ms. Rahman.
Yes.
That's 5 ayes, and that item is continued, sir.
Okay, thank you. That item's continued. Moving on to item number 3. Again, this was one that I had suggested for consent. There, no formal speakers. Does anyone wish to use, I'll ask does anyone wish to speak on this item? Seeing no one coming forward, I think we can adopt this item on consent, so let's call the roll.
Yes. Mr. Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Ms. Hutt.
Aye.
Mr. Nassarian. Mr. Lee.
Aye.
And Ms. Rahman.
Yes.
5, and that's unanimous, sir.
Great, thank you. Similarly with items, let's do items 4, 5, and 6.
6 has an amendment, sir.
Okay, so let's just do items 4 and 5. They're scheduled for consent. Does anyone wish to speak on these items? I have nobody listed here. Seeing nobody coming forward, let's take items 4 and 5 on, let's vote on those now.
Yes. Mr. Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Ms. Hutt.
Aye.
Mr. Nassarian. Mr. Lee.
Aye.
And Ms. Rahman.
Yes.
That's 5 ayes, and those items are adopted, sir.
Okay, let's take up item 6.
Item 6, sir, that has an amendment. It's a technical amendment. The planning representative is here, and she can speak to those technical amendments. She's walking to the desk right now.
Okay. Welcome.
Good afternoon. This is Melina Sudgeon with the Department of City Planning. We'd like to recommend technical amendments to the motion to clarify that the initiation is being undertaken by City Council, to update the appropriate LAMC sections, and to correct the proposed sign district addresses. So the correction would be to one of the motions in the, one of the part of the language where it would state, I therefore move that the council initiate a sign district pursuant to Municipal Code Section 8.2.3 of Chapter 1A for the properties located at 911 through 915, 925, 927, 933 through 939 South Figueroa Street, 845 West Olympic, 932 through 936, 940 through 942 and a half, 944 South San Francisco Street, 941 Cottage Place, and 816822 West James Wood Boulevard, and APN 513-800-3002.
Great, thank you. Okay, any members of the public wish to speak to this item? Seeing no members, oh, we have somebody, go ahead. Mr. Spindler, go ahead, you can use your second minute on this item.
This is the De Leon, the great Kevin De Leon. I support Kevin De Leon in his absence. And this fucking sign district, there should be large signs in the shape of big dicks. And they should be lining up all of this stuff saying, fuck you, LA, fuck you. And they should be all signs telling everybody to leave the city, Bob. That you're gonna come here and get fucked if you stay here in LA. If you buy anything, you're gonna get fucked. You go to a hotel, you're gonna get fucked by a prostitute. You go to Las Vegas with John Lee, you're gonna get fucked by a prostitute. You go down to downtown, you're gonna get fucked by a police bitch acting as a prostitute. This is just nothing but fucking graft and corruption, Bob. That's all this shit is. And the worst part is Nithya Ramen Noodle voting for it. She's a no-good cunt for voting for
Okay,
it.
thank you. So enlightening. We have another speaker on this item. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. President, where is my interpreter?
Go ahead, your time is running.
Oh, well, where is my interpreter? Item number 7, it's $85,000 for the environmental justice policy program. But this policy program is a phase 2. But I don't agree that phase 2 policy environmental justice program. But 85,000 is too much money. The people in those countries, we use the land. We use the land for homeless people, students, Figueroa. But we need to use the land. But well, you take the $85,000 for the phase 2 environmental justice. Never adding to the justice program. But at the same time, when we council constituents would reach out about the help, but it is not help, but you get $85,000 for the constitution the environmental policy program. How can we get an environmental justice program?
Thank you. You made more sense than the last speaker, so that's good. Okay, seeing no other speakers on the queue, let's vote on this item.
Yes, so the motion is adopted as amended, as stated by the Planning Department representative. Mr. Blumenfield.
Aye.
Ms. Hutt. Ms. Hutt. Yes. Mr. Nazarian. Aye. Mr. Lee. Aye. And Ms. Rahman.
Yes.
5 ayes, and that motion is adopted as amended.
Okay. Now we'll take up item 7.
Yes, item 7 is a report from the CAO relative to authorizing the use of $85,000 in salary savings for program administration and outreach coordination relative to the Phase 2 outreach of the Environmental Justice Policy Program.
Great. Are there any speakers who wish to speak to this item? Seeing no members on the queue, speakers here, let's vote on this item?
So the recommendation therein is to approve the CAO recommendations. Mr. Blumenfield.
I'm sorry, one second. I'm sorry, Ms. Rahman, did you have a?
I just wanted to make a comment here, which
go ahead.
is, I sit on the Energy and Environment Committee. I sit on this committee now, and I think, those are the two relevant committees that for this kind of work. And we have a climate emergency mobilization office that's putting forward research and work and listening sessions across the city related to building decarbonization and other issues. We have a potential climate budgeting process as part of our city's work that is just discussed at the Energy and Environment Committee. And I just wanted to make sure that in a time of very scarce resources, that we're looking at all of these environmental interventions that we're doing across departments and hopefully consolidating them, ensuring that staff are speaking to each other and maximizing their impact. And I would encourage Department of City Planning staff who are working on this effort to communicate with the CMO staff and to others, and really to make sure that we're moving along not just pieces of work that aren't holistic and don't have enough of the impact, but using our limited resources to actually push forward something that can have real impact for our city's impacts on climate change. Thanks.
Great, thank you, and I appreciate the comments. Any other colleagues on comment on this item? No, let's take the vote. Call the vote.
Yes, so the recommendations in the CAO report are being adopted in addition to Ms. Rahman's comment encouraging the planning department to coordinate with the climate office. Mr. Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Ms. Hutt.
Yes.
Mr. Nassarian.
Aye.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
And Ms. Rahman.
Yes.
That's 5 ayes, and that's adopted.
Okay, now we'll move on to item number 8.
Item 8, sir, is a joint report from City Planning and the Department of Transportation, the Bureau of Street Services, and the Department of Economic Workforce Development. It's relative to current programs and approaches to create more affordable and sustainable residential and mixed-use opportunities on commercial infill sites.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. Michelle Levy. We have prepared a presentation. We're happy to go through the presentation if that would be helpful.
Sorry, say that again?
We have a presentation.
Okay,
we're,
yes.
We're happy to go through it if
let's
it's
do that.
helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Michelle Levy, Senior City Planner with LA City Planning. I'm joined today by Principal City Planner Ken Bernstein. This report represents over 2 years of collective interdepartmental efforts involving the Departments of City Planning, Transportation, Public Works, Bureau of Street Services, EWDD, and in coordination with the Office of the CAO and CLA. The Livable Communities Initiative City Council motion envisions corridors throughout Los Angeles where opportunities for new housing are paired with walkable, bikeable, and tree-lined streets. This holistic vision for aligning public realm improvements with new housing was identified as Implementation Program 131 in our adopted housing element. The big idea behind LCI is to align new housing opportunities and safer multimodal streets. More integrated housing and mobility investments can give rise to livable neighborhoods. The council motion laid out a number of measures that could be undertaken to accelerate infill housing development on small sites through the introduction of housing incentives and development standards, including waivers and reductions of setbacks, floor area, and other development standards for smaller commercially zoned lots, minimum density requirements to promote smaller, more naturally occurring affordable housing and mixed-use development, incentives to encourage greater lot density, micro-units, shared housing, or increasing FAR allowances, elimination or reduction of parking minimums, inclusionary affordable housing requirements, and the motion also directed departments to evaluate the streamlining of projects through administrative clearance procedures for LCI projects with new objective design and development standards, and administrative review for projects to require public right-of-way amenities and infrastructure improvements in order to encourage transit ridership, pedestrian, and cyclist safety and placemaking. The motion also instructs departments to engage in a community-driven outreach and engagement strategy to not only identify zoning tools, but also investigate new regulatory tools, fees, grants, and other strategies to finance public improvements, which may include enhanced infrastructure finance districts, or EIFDs, community revitalization and investment authority, CRIA, and social impact bonds. So in response to the directives in the council motion, the departments have collaboratively developed a recommended Livable Communities Initiative pilot program, which I'll outline in the next few slides. I'd like to note that since the drafting of the council motion in 2022, LA City Planning has been actively engaged in the implementation of a citywide housing rezoning strategy involving a robust community engagement program. And this rezoning strategy is an equity-based approach that seeks to affirmatively further fair housing. As part of the Housing Element program, the newly adopted Citywide Housing Incentive Program, or CHIP, addresses most, if not all, of the objectives of the LCI motion to encourage mixed-income housing. And in parallel with the citywide effort, LA City Planning is engaged in several active community plan programs where conversations around the scale and type of development communities wish to see in the future are ongoing. And these will result to changes in underlying zoning and the creation of new form-based codes and use districts tailored to each community plan area. LA City Planning is also pursuing objective design standards through the Citywide Landscape and Site Design Ordinance, which aims to improve site design through a variety of development standards. And this was recently approved by City Council, is now undergoing City Attorney review for form and legality. So given that we have made tremendous progress since the motion was first introduced and are near the adoption phase or have completed the adoption phase with the Housing Element implementation programs, the report really recommends building upon the current programs, active and recently adopted community plans, transit neighborhood plans, and other targeted outreach programs to initiate a 2-year pilot program that aligns housing opportunities with public realm investments and sets the stage for future infrastructure financing. And I'll just give a quick overview. In year 1 of the pilot program, utilizing an equity framework for identifying candidate locations, the pilot will build upon active work programs and evaluate new candidate areas for inclusion, including existing areas with high concentrations of housing and affordable housing. In the first year, we'll work with council offices and stakeholders to establish a list of candidate LCI corridors. These can range in scope from a 1/4 mile to 2-mile segments, meeting established criteria. At the conclusion of year 1, we recommend that 10 to 15 LCI corridors be selected through a recommended data-driven and community-driven process. And in the next few slides, I'll touch on some of the equity criteria we'll be relying upon. In year 2, both zoning and public realm plans will be developed interdepartmentally. Plans will be of an appropriate level of detail for capital improvement grant applications. One of the key deliverables of year 2 is to prepare public realm plans that are of an acceptable level of detail for programs such as the Active Transportation or ATP grant, for example. And we know that many of these grants require preliminary public process and technical studies. The LCI pilot will give us a leg up to make our grant applications more competitive. Street improvement plans and objective design standards for new development will address roadway and sidewalk enhancements that support active transportation, prioritize pedestrian and cyclist safety, and promote neighborhood placemaking for each selected pilot corridor. Finally, cost estimates for each pilot corridor plan from low to high range will be provided. After the initial pilot in years 3 through 5, departments will coordinate to pursue grant funding opportunities or other funding mechanisms through EIFDs or other means to realize the corridor improvements. During this time, preliminary design can begin for the more intensive street improvements, and construction can be initiated for potential quick build projects. Now, going back for a moment to the issue of equity and our selection of pilot corridors, the departments are proposing using an equitable corridor selection criteria, set of criteria and considerations that will be integrated into the LCI work program in year 1. If LCI is approved and staffing resources are allocated, departments will coordinate during the first year to identify corridor selection criteria. And this may include, but will not be limited to, housing opportunity areas, such as those identified in the CHIP and transit neighborhood plans, for example, mobility and safety strategies, for example, the mobility investment program, or where we have Vision Zero streets identified, climate and equity targets, looking at communities that are vulnerable to extreme heat, tree canopy goals and shade equity, economic vitality, including Olympic legacy projects, and relying upon some of the other city equity metrics and indices that have already been vetted and endorsed by the City Council and relevant city departments. Throughout year one, we'll draw upon this data to help shape and select priority corridors and engage in a community-driven outreach program. And by the end of year one, eligible corridors will be narrowed to 10 to 15 selected streets. In year two, departments will engage communities within each of the respective pilot areas on the development of alternative design conceptualizations. That concludes the presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Before we do that, we have a number of public commenters, so I'm going to go to that list. I'm not sure who's here, but we have Courtney Alicia Miles, Lindsay Sturham, Catherine Shaw, Will Byer, Margaret Harrington, and Will Proctor. So if you're here, if anyone is here to speak on this item, please come forward. Please don't interrupt the meeting, Mr. Herman.
Hello. My name is Will Byer. I'll go ahead and start speaking. I am here to voice my support for the LCI initiative and broadly to speak for the urgency behind this type of work and ideally even more ambitious. I am a resident of Councilwoman Park's office, so I know is not on this committee. But in my neighborhood, I can look right around me on major commercial corridors near transit walk sheds where there are so many empty commercial lots that hold a billboard or nothing, or just walled or just empty, and could desperately use the housing infill. I have seen 3 car accidents last year on our small, narrow sidewalk. I can't take my elderly family members with mobility issues on our sidewalks. And it's just very hard to imagine a future of a life in Los Angeles with the infrastructure we have now. So I implore this council to take seriously the absolute urgency of many more initiatives like this.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Lindsay Sturman. I'm one of the co-founders of the LCI, and I'm here to support it. And the idea is a holistic solution, and it is a vision of gentle density and street changes that really create livability without having to necessarily own a car. You know, of course, that's not part of a necessary part of it. We love this, the plan that's been created by the planning department. It's incredible. We'd love to see this, you know, given the climate emergency and given that everything that's happening in the world. It feels like this is, you know, climate's really coming down to states and cities. And this is a 15-minute city is the backbone of a sustainable city because it really lets people walk and bike and access transit. So we thank you for the planning department for this incredible report, and we hope you'll support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, members of the Plum Committee. My name is Courtney Alicia Miles, organizer of Abundant Housing LA, here in support and solidarity with Livable Communities Initiative. I'm urging you to adopt the staff work plan approved by the Housing and Homelessness Committee. It's a holistic solution to build high-quality homes, family-sized units, and attainable home ownership and affordable housing across the region. This has the potential to address LA's linked housing, transportation, climate, and public health challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Margaret Harrington, and I am here to support the pilot that has been proposed. It seems that discussions about our need to increase housing opportunities in Los Angeles are all too often cast as a truly false dichotomy. Everything either has to be single-family homes or mega apartment complexes. The Livable Communities Initiative demonstrates that there are many more options, ones that scale to provide the needed amounts of housing, support local business, and create walkable neighborhoods, and yet transition easily between both high-density uses and single-family areas. LCI has been adopted by the city as a housing element program, and we must stand by the commitment to implement it. This is a positive vision for LA's future that has the potential to simultaneously address our housing, transportation, and climate challenges, and I strongly urge you to move forward with the pilot. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Will Proctor, and I am very excited to speak to you today because I am very enthusiastic about the goals of LCI. It does a lot of things I think would make LA a really world-class city, which we always say we are, but I think it makes us get even closer there. So it includes affordable housing and family-sized units, where people are able to walk on large sidewalks and neighborhood cafes, support local businesses. It makes transit more effective and more efficient, and it really just makes LA a more livable community. We have a long way to go, but I think implementing the LCI is a holistic solution that would make Los Angeles be a city that works for its constituents. So I'm running out of time here, but I really am thankful for you to considering this and supporting LCI to make LA better for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Morning, really quick. Regarding RD 1549 North Hollywood, please, appealing to you, stop development, overdeveloped. We don't need any more projects, only single-family dwellings. So I have an idea. Maybe we should publish the council's home address so the constituents can visit them and explain why they don't like their quality of life ruined. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Seeing no one else wishing to speak on this item, that concludes public comment on this item. I'm going to allow Ms. Rahman to get us started. I'll just say, look, I love the concepts of Livable Communities Initiative, incredibly important work. I have some concerns with this pilot because I want things to go faster, and the pilot in some ways silos these efforts when really this should be integrated into all that we do as a city. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Councilwoman Rahman to get us started.
Thank you so much, Councilmember, and I echo that concern. I think I want to go back to, I have a few questions about the presentation and just wanted to understand what a pilot would actually mean in practice, because I don't think I quite do. The original motion that spurred this effort really asked for standards that would be by right or administrative zoning standards that would generate through those by right efforts the kind of neighborhoods that were envisioned in a Livable Communities Initiative. Ones that would enable greater walking, more walkability, more kind of pleasant streetscapes and all of that. But in the pilot that's being described here, it feels like we're not actually doing by right development or waiving of setbacks and other development standards. It feels like an active program to ask for other kinds of design interventions. So could you clarify exactly what the pilot means in practice and how it compares to the original intent of the motion?
Yes, I can speak to that, Michelle Levy. So I think our approach in the report was really to build upon areas where we're currently doing community plan work, which does establish a by right process through the new zoning code. So through the new zoning code, we have form districts that can be really tailored to each community and are done by right. So through the community plans, many more projects along corridors will become by right projects because they will, as long as they follow the new standards in the new
Right.
code, they'll be by right. Additionally, through the CHIP program, many more projects will not have discretionary review, they'll
Right.
have administrative review,
Right.
or become by right. So, taking those things together, one is a citywide program, one is through community plans, and then through our transit neighborhood plan program as well, where we're trying to encourage specifically new development around transit infill projects. We feel that we have a lot to build upon.
Okay.
And then, in terms of administrative review or streamlining, we've also just taken the landscape and site design ordinance through the process. This is a series of 100+ development standards that support, active uses, walkability, street trees. So this is actually doing a lot of the work and kind of the vision of the LCI program for projects that are over 5 units or more. So we feel like we've captured many of these topics through the private development side, through recent zoning efforts. There will always be some projects that are discretionary, but the number of discretionary projects overall has gone down over the years, and we continued on that trajectory.
So I guess my question here is, so we have CHIP, we have these community plans that are moving forward, we also have state efforts like AB 2097, we also have HLA, which was passed, so we have a number. When this was originally introduced, this was September of 2022. Now it's February of 2025, and all of these things have come into play in the interim. So what exactly is the pilot part of this effort? Like, so much of what was asked for in this has been incorporated into these interventions, whether there be, new incentive programs like CHIP or new regulatory kind of interventions like the state 2097 program. What makes up the pilot part of this? And given that we've done all this work, given that you have existing community plans, that you know where they are, given that SCAG has selected 50 areas for livable community stretches, and given that you have CHIP, which identified very clearly through a community engagement process and an analysis which areas are close enough to transit to make this kind of 15-minute city or livable city viable, what more community engagement and analysis do you need to do in order to select pilot areas? Like, it feels like we already have them. We've identified them through CHIP, we've identified them through other means. What is this year selecting a pilot going to do, and what is it going to net us that we don't already have in front of us?
I think the missing component is really the public realm investment piece. So, we've kind of solved for the housing piece and rezoning through community plans, but what's been sort of the missing link is the connection between housing and mobility. And this is where, the street modernization manual that BOE is currently embarking on, the HLA, Measure HLA, this is really an opportunity to align the two. I spoke about Vision Zero and some of the equity criteria that LADOT takes into consideration when choosing their projects. These often don't coincide with areas where we're promoting housing opportunities. So we're looking for areas where the two overlap, and potentially in areas where maybe areas that haven't been covered by CHIP, but still merit some public investment in infrastructure. So that's the pilot portion of this, is really to, for the first time, actually, I don't think the city has ever done this, really look at the mobility plan and the housing element together, and really look at opportunities where there are alignments between where we want to, implement our citywide mobility vision for safety, for transit and bikes, and where we're also promoting housing.
And I would just add to that, Ken Bernstein, City Planning. I think what sets the LCI apart is really the holistic approach, that it is really meant to break down silos, not to siloize these types of improvements, to really link the land use incentives, to build upon the land use incentives and zoning advances through some of our community plans, transit neighborhood plans, et cetera, and tie that for the first time to these public realm improvements, to economic investments.
So what does
to
that mean
objective
to
design
tie
standards.
that to public realm improvements?
To
I'm just not
have
sure.
a
I don't know what that
geographic
means.
focus, and again, we have not always been able to follow through our community plan work and our housing and zoning incentives to a true geographic focus, and this is meant to focus on corridors in this case, to link these planning and zoning incentives to the public realm enhancements and economic incentives. And the planners and the interdepartmental teams that would be working on the pilot would be looking at this through the lens of syncing all of this together in focused geographies. So yes, a lot of the heavy lifting may have been done on the land use side through other means, but this is really more of a holistic implementation effort that takes that work to the next step.
And I just want to add, the street design component is a process, community process in and of itself, where we are promoting new housing opportunities and the streets are subpar. This is really an opportunity for those communities to get some public benefits out of, the investments that will come to their neighborhoods. So they'll start to see, street improvements that improve walkability and really kind of create that livable community, if you will, combining housing and safe crossings, more street trees, better use of medians.
Okay, let me ask a couple of other questions just in the meantime. I appreciate the work and the vision behind this, and I'm all for it. It's my motion. It's a part of what I'm so excited about is actually implementing this in practice. But I still am not clear on kind of what will take a year to select locations when we've done so much public engagement around all of these different efforts already, and then what specifically will be added in those pilot areas that we're not already doing through the community planning process. I'm still not clear on that, and I think I will, I probably need a little bit more time to understand that. But before we get back to that, I do just want to also ask, you have a recommendation here for 22 additional staff members to implement the pilot of this. We are in a very tight budget cycle, as you know. What happens now? Like, you've recommended these 22 positions. What happens when we send this forward? Does this mean that these 22 positions are guaranteed and that we're going to get them?
No, thank you for that question. And we recognize certainly the fiscal situation may have changed since this report was completed and posted to the council file last May. We do know that one of the next steps is the CAO will be preparing a report on those recommendations that, as we understand it, would be referred to Budget, Finance, and Innovation and perhaps Personnel Committee. As this has been referred to 6 committees, this motion, but we know that the CAO report would inform further recommendations by the Budget and Personnel Committees. The staffing assumptions that our department and the multiple departments put forward were our best recommendations of what it would take to advance a true citywide pilot of 10 to 15 corridors, recognizing the amount of work it would take to really focus intensively on these corridors and coordinate not only the land use incentives, but the public realm improvements, objective design standards, potential economic investments. Obviously, we can't, in planning, speak for the needs of other departments. They'll have to be involved in that process as well. But we've done our best to lay out the resources that it would take and put forward a realistic number of corridors. We're happy to kind of right-size the program to be commensurate with the resources that are available during our tighter fiscal times. But we try to be realistic about how many corridors a planner could take on in the intensive way that was envisioned by the motion. So we're happy to work with your office and all the offices and the CAO moving forward.
And maybe I'll refer this to our former budget chair to ask his feedback on what happens. Like, if the CAO then comes forward and says, well, we have no money, does that mean that this is over?
There's not a snowball's chance that these positions are going to be funded this year. It's not going to happen. what we need to do, and I mean, I don't even think we should be wasting the time of our CAO to be going through on all of that. I love the livable city stuff, and I think that
I absolutely love this. I'm fighting for this.
We can, yes, and we can get there in a different way. And what I'm going to recommend is that we ask the Department of City Planning, Department of Transportation, the Bureau of Street Services to report on how the Livable Cities initiative concepts can be integrated into all updates to community plans or specific plans, implementation of Measure HLA, including prioritization of corridors for resurfacing and mobility improvements, implementation of the STAP program, and design and construction of existing grant-funded programs, including those under the Affordable Housing and Sustainability Communities program and the Active Transportation program. We have all these programs there that we've been dealing with. We want we want to kind of skip a step and just start integrating this stuff.
So, Councilmember, I have I appreciate, that's what I want to, right? I want us to be doing the work with all the opportunities that we have ahead of us. My fear, if you say, let's integrate it into all of these existing programs, is that it goes away. And that's my fear. And I don't, I love this too much to let it go into our existing planning processes and kind of get melded into a community plan process from which we won't see results for 5 years. What I want is for us to be able to do some smart pilots that use our existing programs that say so many of these goals in them.
Right, and to do it in a way that's not so siloed. I mean, because that's part of the issue with the pilots, is that the fear is that we're just, and sometimes siloing, is a good pilot program, but sometimes it just moves something off to the side and then it doesn't get done. So I think we share the same goal, is how do we actually come up with a reasonable bite at this that can be integrated and not ignored.
Right, integrated and maybe focused on a few areas to do the biggest amount of the work, but that it's actually in an existing work plan, that it's integrated with our CHIP incentives and our other new programs that we've passed, and that it will actually get done through our community planning process, which is already funded, already ongoing, mandated by the city. And I fear, I agree with the spirit of your recommendation, Councilmember. I fear that recommendation will make this essentially disappear.
Well, we have to be vigilant about it too, is how do we make it not disappear? My fear in moving forward on the pilot, we spend a lot of time turning our gears about all these positions, only to, when we know in this budget year that, we are going to be struggling to keep positions. We're going to be in a mode where we are reducing these numbers across the board. And so realistically, we're not going to be increasing those budget positions. So, spinning our wheels on it is not going to get us to the goal that we both want, which is livable cities, communities engaged, HLA actually being implemented, those kinds of things.
Could I ask for us to take a beat, maybe bring this back to the next committee meeting with a recommendation that works with planning to ensure that we are able to do both? Would that be all right with you?
Yeah, no, that's, I think that's what was part of this recommendation, was the idea was to get these departments, as I said, to give us a report back on this, and so we would have something that comes back to us that we can actually.
But could it come back to this committee?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I would expect it would come back to, but we can make that even more clear. Yeah. Okay, second the motion. Colleagues, any additional comments? Ms. Rama, do you have I'm open to, if you have a way to tweak it.
So it won't move to the next committee because it's been scheduled at 6 different, or it's been assigned to 6 different committees, so it'll come back to this committee with the different recommendations.
Well, the different recommendation is we're asking these departments, planning, transportation, to report on how the Livable Communities initiatives can be integrated and into all of our updates to community plans, specific plans, the implementation of HLA, et cetera, on all the things that I mentioned. So the idea is that we would get a report back on how that could happen.
So okay, so I have 2 questions. One, I'm just understanding the process. Is this going to move through all of these other committees and then move through full council, and then after all of that, come back to us with another recommendation potentially in 6 or 8 months?
Well, whatever we do here, right, we could hold it on the desk, But if we move forward this recommendation, right, then it would have to go to the council and be approved. We could hold, the other option
And
is.
four other committees, and four other committees.
Yeah, unless because we've removed some of the items, it could go straight to council, would be my hope. We could waive it out of those committees. I mean, already being referred to 6th committee is
wild.
Is an indication already of that it's not on a fast track, and we want it on a fast track.
Yes, so I guess what I would say is if we can include a specific reference to, you know, focusing in on 15 priority areas as part of this work, then I'm fine to move it forward. But I think we can't.
I mean, we could hold it in this committee. That's the other option, and then ask for a report back that does essentially what we said, and have you guys come back to us before, and then it wouldn't go to any other committee until we're done with it, which is fine with me too.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think if they could come back with a revised recommendation that takes into account the changes in CHIP and state level initiatives and the changed fiscal situation to this committee, then we can move it to full council with a robust recommendation that makes sense.
Okay, well, let's do that, but also have the, not just on the 15 pilots, but recommendations on how either through pilot program or how it can be directly implemented.
Yes, sure.
Because we want to cut to the chase. We want to get this stuff actually happening.
Right.
And just to clarify on that instruction, Councilman, is the committee requesting that the report back include a recommendation up front of the 15 pilot areas, or that would be deferred, that this is just focused on the overall approach? Are you looking to expedite the decision on the 15 pilots?
What's that?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
No, the question was whether the committee instruction is requesting that the departments report back with recommendations on the pilot areas themselves at this stage, or just on the overall approach in terms of integrating it with other programs.
I think overall approach.
Yeah, I think we're saying that we can't just keep going down this road if we know it's a dead end.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah, and again, I just want to clarify, like, I fear that if you're asking for 22 positions, and we move this forward to full council and say, CAO, recommend to us whether you're going to give us 22 positions
We know
to
the
do
answer.
the LCI, it's dead. This is dead. And I don't know. That's just not something I'm comfortable with.
I agree with you. So let's make the recommendation that you come back. We're going to hold this item, and we're going to ask you to come back with the recommendations that are, that are integrating this into our overall plan. That's not adding 22 positions. That is more of a process of how we can do this. And if we're holding it on the desk, I don't even know, do we need to vote on that?
Yes, the action of the committee would be to hold it in committee.
Okay.
And with the instructions that you just gave to city plan.
Okay. Is that, did you,
I
any
will-
colleagues, any additional concerns, comments? Okay. All right, let's call the roll.
Yes, Mr. Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Ms. Hutt.
Aye.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Ms. Roman.
Yes.
And did I miss someone? Oh, Mr. Nassarian, sorry. Aye. That's 5 ayes and unanimous.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that clears the desk in terms of items. We still have general public comment. We have a few folks that have patiently waited through all of this because they have some really important things they wish to share with us. We need to keep quorum here, so 2 of you can leave. Go ahead. Anybody wants to?
Hello, good morning, Council President Harry Stolson. I have a general public comment regarding why that I'm not allowed to operate my hotel business in the city of Los Angeles. Why I've seen so many people are struggling maintaining, continuing their hotel business in the city of LA, and why that a council member offers no assistance to those people who are struggling, with their hotel business. Very important that it seems like our council president is only helping Palestinian. Nobody is care about Israel. But at the same time, I have no choice other than being a prostitute, because in the city of council, I cannot receive any help from council member Blue Mandingo.
Thank you. Next speaker. Next speaker. Oh, there you are. Thank you.
Bobsy, you keep us here, you know, like, you know, you get to hear all this side talk because you don't let us go in and out in the beginning.
Please,
Anyway,
entertain
I'm
us.
here about L. Ron Hubbard Way, okay? The church, the cult of Scientology is pretending that it's a street that's no parking. The city has not yet been able to prove that there's actual no parking. So I would say the city should go in there and put in your beloved, you know, those things that you put money in so you can park, parking meters. I think you should go in, put them in there, because there's all the people that work in the hospital surrounding that I'm sure would absolutely love to have that street opened up to parking. Put in the meters, put in, you know, brand new ones that would never break, you know, at the highest level, whatever it is that you guys charge now to park in the city. Do it, please. They don't have no parking. It's a city street. It's not private. Please go in and make sure that the city, but you know they do give tickets. The city gives tickets as if it is private. They believe the lie. The city can't prove it, that it's, okay, so get those meters in.
Thank you. Mr. Herman, could you use the regular microphone?
Thank you, asshole Bob. And the reason behind this whole issue here is about your pilot program. You got Noodle, who's constantly saying and referring back to a budget that can't help the pilot program. So what fucking answer do you have to this pilot program? Don't walk into a meeting with a budget that you don't have. Don't talk about a pilot program that's not gonna work. And get Nazari to speak up. The goddamn goat. He can't even comment on this shit. Cause I don't know if he's too fucking stupid or is he fucking back there in Turkey or somewhere trying to hold back the Armenian army. But the whole issue here is whether or not Ramen Noodle's husband can attract new business. I don't believe so. So, for the record, as John Lee would say, 42 U.S.C. 1983, fuck you politely.
According to the council, I'd just like to comment on Chief Crowley. She had no way to control that. She's being the scapegoat. The mayor wants to dump it all on her, even though it wasn't her fault. And I want her put back as a chief and general manager like she was. She's getting railroaded, and that's my comment. Thank you.
Mr. Spindler, take us home with some really entertainments for our final minute. Go ahead.
Bob, but I just want to say about Chicken Bob. Last week, Bob, I was outside waiting to talk, Bob, but you chickened out. And you fucking did a Weezer, Bob. Denied me my one goddamn butter. This is just a chicken, Bob. Gonna raise your kids as cowards like you, Bob. They're not gonna know if they're Jewish or black. They're not gonna know about their race. But the worst part, Bob, and I think the reason you're going crazy like a chicken, is because Ramen Noodle's driving you insane. Noodle. Can you imagine, Bob, asking all those goddamn dumb questions like a goddamn dumb cunt? Did she really graduate from MIT, Bob? How about you, Nazarian? Has anybody you know ever graduate from MIT's as dumb as Ramen Noodle? Come on, man. Wait, let's go back and check that transcript. I'm doubting it, Bob. Finally, fuck you, Bob, and fuck
Okay, well, that was really worth the wait. I'm glad you guys waited till the end of the meeting. So, this meeting, seeing that there